Kit Knowles is from Ecospheric, energy-saving consultancy based in Chorlton. Well, you'll be fairly busy then.
Yeah, we certainly are at the moment, very busy, helping people save energy in their homes.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. There are two main questions, aren't there? How do we save energy? How do we save, therefore, money?
Yeah, energy, money, very interlinked. And also, from the climate perspective, it's also quite a big debate going on at the moment. Interestingly as well, people forget things like comfort and health, and also the maintenance and durability of properties, all of which cost money from an NHS perspective, from getting a paintbrush out, changing your doors and windows, all these things add up. So they affect all parts of our lives.
So changing doors and windows, fair enough. It's nice to have new windows if you can afford them, but you have to shell out between 10, 20 grand perhaps. When you're thinking about a new boiler, new windows, new doors, or whatever it is, secondary glazing, for example, what are the principles that we need to bear in mind?
That's a really interesting question because looking at it from the perspective of here's a house, here's heat loss from a house, and where are the significant points of heat loss, and how should we target that? Well, actually, that's a question I asked right back when I tried to found my company, focusing on the kind of the basic principles about heat loss and how we could target it. And it's really interesting. We found out there's quite a lot of difference between what we recommend now and what's commonly held as the law of how to approach a property. So, for instance, you talk about doors and windows. That's very, very poignant because one of the first things that anyone says when they walk through into my show home, they say, this is very, very comfortable, very warm, feels really nice. The humidity is not too oppressive. And they're saying, but what I need you to do is help me increase my the insulation in my floors and replace my doors and windows for me. And it's a really hard-hitting question because the reality is that it's really expensive. I mean, you say £10,000 to £20,000. I've had clients who've been spending £30,000 on doors and windows replacement. And you look at the actual heat loss in a property, there's kind of two main forms. One is conduction, which is where you're kind of heating your walls. Your walls are warm, so it warms outside. But there's a much more direct form of heat loss, which is called convection, which you know as drafts, which is basically your air literally going through gaps in the building to the outside. And that's what people think they're helping or to prevent when they upgrade their doors and windows. But actually what you're doing is you're shifting the problem to elsewhere in the property. And what you've really got to focus on is stopping monodirectional extraction, which is this idea of things like chimneys and fans. They extract in one way all year round, 365 days of the year. In fact, a single chimney could evacuate the entire volume of your house in just 3 hours. So focusing on these are the public enemies. They are the things that are causing the infiltration through your doors and windows that you blame. They don't feel cold because obviously it's your warm air that's going up a chimney and it's the cold air coming back in through the windows and doors.
When I was a kid, we spent many happy hours stuffing a pair of my mother's stockings with newspaper into the shape of a snake to put at the bottom of the door to stop the drafts. Yeah. So, okay, that's a very, very good answer. A bit of science in there as well. But on a day-to-day level, if I'm going to go home and tell my Auntie Mildred what are the top tips, what can you suggest?
So you've all heard of things like turn your thermostat down a degree and you save 10% on your energy bills. Well, interestingly, there's more than just one thermostat in your house. So you can apply this to things like your fridges. You may be able to turn them up a few degrees and still keep your food quite a long time. But you save quite a lot of energy on that because fridges and freezers, believe it or not, are the biggest electrical consumers in a household typically. Additionally, if you've got a combi boiler, and I must stress it's a combi boiler, not a tank, but combi boilers, they take cold water coming in and are able to heat that up instantaneously. So there's no Legionella's risk with it at all, which means that actually there's no point in generating 60, 70 degree water and then getting in the shower and mixing it with cold water again to bring it back down to comfort level. Just turn that down to sort of 40, 45 degrees and you'll find that A, you'll never be able to burn yourself, and B, you'll save a lot of energy in the meantime.
Okay, one more?
Yeah, sure. So an interesting bit of food science maybe. So people are often criticise microwaves as unhealthy and all the rest of it. But interestingly enough, do you know that the most efficient way of cooking in the kitchen is using a microwave, and the most healthy way of cooking in a kitchen is to use a steam oven? But let's ask another question. What is the second most efficient way of cooking in a kitchen?
Using a cooker.
Interestingly enough, it was using the steam oven. And what's the second most healthy way of cooking.
Oh, I've no idea. I'm supposed to be asking the questions. Right.
So all you've got to do is install a microwave and a steam oven, and you can cook the most efficiently and the most healthily.
Right. So the windows I've just paid for, the cavity wall insulation we've just had, the new cooker we've had in the kitchen, I've just completely wasted all that money.
Well, this is the point, is that there is so much misinformation out there that you've got to get your head straight. What is really consuming the energy? Let's look at it. What are you paying for? Where's your gas going? Where's your electricity going? Take it all the way back to first principles. That's the whole concept behind my company.
Stay with us, Kit, for a second. Kit Knowles, Ecospheric is the company he keeps referring to. It's based in Chorlton, but councils across the region today, there's more to it than that, but what Tina has just explained to us is also crucial, Kit, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to take it's like with almost anything, you've got to take a kind of a scattergun approach. There's as much as you can get somebody to engage with in terms of upgrading their home, the better it is. Obviously, because there's hundreds of thousands of things that you can do, you do need to apply a bit of thought to make sure that you're getting your bang for your buck. The first pound spent is the best pound spent and the quickest to pay for itself. So it's applying a kind of a more holistic approach, because also there's plenty out there that you can shove onto a house that sort of affects negatively other elements that you're putting in there. And like, for instance, people taking a very active approach is quite common. We call it eco-bling, the idea of strapping sexy solar panels and everything else onto your roof. Necessarily it isn't the best approach if you're not actually thinking about conserving that energy in the first place. And often, if you can really reduce your consumption up front, then all of these more active components are actually much more efficient and make up for a much larger percentage of your energy consumption.
Can you go along with that, Tina?
Well, yes. I mean, for example, the Energy Saving Trust have figures which show how much money a resident would save. Say, for example, if they replaced their inefficient boiler with a new A-rated boiler, you could save about £300 a year, every year, off your fuel bills. And then just for the cavity and loft insulation, again, you're talking about a couple of £100 every year for the next 20 or so years. So these measures are really worthwhile, because if you're eligible for them, to have them for free, then you're not paying anything, and in effect you're saving money off your fuel bill.
Well, if you get that for free, you can't argue with that. I mean, if you're buying a new boiler, you have to work out, you might save a couple of £100 a year. It might cost you, I don't know, how much is a new boiler? 10 grand?
No, £3,000.
How many years?
Installation.
Right, so it's going to be a long time before you've
Typically, if your boiler is over 10 years, it's a no-brainer. If it's over 5 years, you need to do that calc. And if it's less than 5 years, so long as it's condensing, you don't really need to think about it such much.
Okay, I'm going to have to look at my boiler. It's 19 years old.
Yeah,
I need it maybe, yeah, probably. And you might not want to put yourself on the spot. Combi or not?
It does depend upon other things that you're putting in there. So let's think if you're trying to put in solar thermal or biomass or anything else fancy, then you can't really go for a combi. But if you're just straight replacement and you're thinking about improving your house just from a purely gas perspective, then you really can't beat the efficiency of a combi, because of the fact you don't have tanks, you don't need to worry about the space, but also those tanks are quite inefficient. They lose energy over time, whereas a combi is generating that energy instantaneously.
Okay. Fascinating stuff. Thank you very much indeed to Kit Knowles from Ecospheric, which is not easy to say, but it's a very innovative company. I'm sure it's in Chorlton. And Tina Gandhi from Bolton Council. BBC Radio Manchester, smidgen after 11:20. Hope you got lots from that conversation. That free phone.